Hello, I hope that everybody is here. If you are, just give us a shout out. Welcome. Today is October the 2nd. And,
last time
and here we go.
Uninterrupted peace. No thinking about yesterday or worrying about tomorrow, but fully immersed in the present moment, free of your troubles. According to the National Library of Medicine, 90% of doctors' visits are
stress-related health complaints, but even a moderately stressful
immunity
suppresses and our nervous system's life expectancy. Our newly seemed connected lifestyles demand increased
All right, we seem to be having my fun technical. Don't really know why this is playing. Okay.
additional strain on our nervous system with little time to rest and restore.
Here we go. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for your patience, everyone. If you are here and you are listening, please say hello in the chat. I'm going to introduce our guest for today. That is a meditation teacher in Mill Valley. We are going to be speaking on the rise of the energies of the divine feminine. I want to reiterate to those who are brand new that we are talking about energies. It is not related to gender, identity, or even sexuality. It is typically an archetype of male and masculine, but the energies run through all of us and all entities. We are going to ask Kristen about how she came to meditation. Those of you who are Vedic meditation practitioners, we're going to have a group meditation in a moment, and then we're going to talk about the divine feminine. If you're new, please just say hello in the chat, and we will be able to reach out to you and make sure that your questions are answered during this live stream. And so I'd like to ask you, Kristen, tell us a little bit about how you came to Vedic meditation, and make sure you're off of mute now.
Hi, Paula. Thank you so much for having me. I came to meditation over 10 years ago. And before that, I had done yoga and dabbled in meditation, but it wasn't until I discovered Vedic meditation that I actually had a practice that was more than just, doing it once every 3 weeks at the end of a yoga class for 5 minutes. So I was at the time working in advertising, which was a very demanding job. I was both a writer and an art director. And my partner at the job I was at the time, he was a meditator, and it always used to annoy me because he would go off right before we had a presentation and be like, I'm going to meditate. I'm like, the hell you are. We have to present in half an hour. And I understand why he did it now, but at the time it annoyed me. And finally one day he was like, my teacher's in San Francisco, you should come listen. And so I did, skeptically, because I'd lived in LA before, and I had seen and heard a lot of meditation talks and gurus and all that crunchy stuff, and I wasn't into it. But I was like, you know what, I could go. And I took the course, and I immediately got it. It was like my eyes had been washed. I walked out of there just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And that's how I came to it. Though, after that I became a mom. It took me a while to get my groove with it. Let's just put it that way.
Did you meditate all the way through your pregnancy?
I did, though. Honestly, I wish someone had told me. I didn't know at the time, because I was very sick with my pregnancies, and I would get kind of nauseous, and sometimes I'd feel sicker when I meditated. So in the beginning of the pregnancy, I would drop off, and I didn't realize that was the body purifying. And that as now, when I have a pregnant student, I tell her that she's to, if she has that issue that I had, to meditate more often, just shorter amounts of time. And that would have probably made my pregnancy a lot easier. But I didn't know that. So I waited till later in the pregnancy to meditate more. But it helps.
And how long have you been meditating now?
About 11 years, I think.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to get into a meditation. Again, those of you who are new or joining in with our special guests, please make sure that you have the subscribe button hit so that the watch hours go towards. This is a non-profit YouTube channel, so we appreciate that. and just say hello so we know who you are. But if you are tuning in and you don't do this practice of meditation, you're still welcome to enjoy our next 20 minutes of respite, as it were. And I want to let you know that this is not a concentration practice. It is a letting go practice. You may have experienced as a child staring out the window and allowing your mind to simply wander, and eventually the droll tones of the teacher melt away. And it's similar to that idea. And let's have a break for 20 minutes of, rather than trying to do something, don't do something. We're so busy in our lives trying to remember us, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, that when we actually have 20 minutes, when you're told to actually allow the mind to do what it wants, what do? We try to control it. This is human nature. So I'm going to start, and Kristen, if you put yourself on mute, and I will when we go into the meditation. Those of you who do our practice, just take a moment, maybe a couple of breaths. And those of you who don't, I'm just going to guide you in with a little bit so you get sort of a sensation idea of what we do. And I'd like you to imagine a nice warm, welcoming sensation on the top of your head, and allow that to move through your forehead, your back of your head, down your face, into your shoulders. And as that happens, your body relaxes further and further inward. And then in this next 20 minutes, simply allow that nice, warm, heavy feeling to move through the body. And if you have thoughts, allow the thoughts to be what they are and simply move through the thoughts like water. And as we go through the water, we simply go with whatever happens in the next 20 minutes. I'll let everyone know when the time is up, and then we'll get back and I'll let everyone know in the chat that we are meditating. All right, let's begin. And those of us in our practice, simply let go of your mantra. And others that are joining us know we're going to spend the next couple of minutes slowly coming back. Whether you want to wiggle your toes, roll your shoulders, stretch a wee bit, all good. We're just going to keep those eyelids down for a couple of more minutes. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And those of us who care for the reminder or don't know, we slowly open our eyes, because those of us who still have the gift of sight, the majority of our information comes in through this sense. And if we open our eyes too quickly, what happens is the light becomes a little jarring and we ignite the fight or flight response, which begins to create a separation from where we were meditating and then where we are in the world. And the reality is we are the same wherever we are, whether it's closing our eyes meditating or in a waking state. So we come in very easily and effortlessly, so we can transition back into the waking state world with some deep, deep rest from what we gained in our meditation. Those of you who are joining us, just to remind you, we are focusing now on the topic of the divine feminine. There is much talk about what is the divine feminine energy. The energy of the divine feminine is usually represented visually with water. It's very much with the flow. It is a nurturing. It is a collaborating element. It is creative. It is a healing element. It does have patience. There is compassion and kindness with it. It is the element where we find our bliss and joy. And for some, it's easier to differentiate what it's not. And its opposing energetic force is more of analytical, getting things done, including victimization, anything that is opposing the gentle flow of water, as it were. But water can be a trickle in a stream, or it can be the growth and the tsunami in the ocean. The breadth of the divine feminine energy is not one of being a doormat. And my guest today will be one to know of what's also called the mama bear energy that comes in, where they have the phrases, no scorn like a woman's. It is the deeps of unconditional love is ultimately the element of the divine feminine energy. And that also includes going to bat for those who they care for and are near to. So when Kristen's going to just chat a little bit about your experience of what that is to you with the divine feminine, and we'll just take it from there. And those of you who have questions, I'm going to be monitoring the chat, not being rude, to make sure we get everyone covered. So tell me what your experience of this energy is, and maybe how it's changed through your course of meditating as well.
Absolutely. I'm not sure I thought about it at all before I meditated. I mean, it was obviously a part of my life, but I like how you mentioned in the beginning that divine feminine is not exclusive to women, that it is an energy and that is enlivened in all of us. And women, it happens to be a little more enlivened often because we are women, but that does not mean that we are being exclusive here when we talk about this energy and this force. You know, how I started coming to it was when I got much more involved in meditation, when I was doing my teacher training. But even before that, I would have what felt like inspiration coming from that place, like that voice, that feminine voice. The first, you know, I don't have many of those kind of experiences that a lot of meditators have where they have visions and things like that. But I have had a couple, and one of which came before I went to my teacher training, and I got a book from a photographer friend of mine. And in the book was all images of, she had taken pictures of women in streams, like with flower crowns and just simple like nightgowns or, you know, almost unclothed. And all these women going into the streams and in rivers. She called them river stories. Her name was Michelle Gardella. She's an incredible photographer. And these women would go into these streams, and for no reason, they would just start crying or start just feeling this freedom. And Michelle's not a meditator. She didn't know what she was doing, but she was basically letting these women be enveloped by water and by that divine feminine force, and just feeling that support, they just were able to let go. And she would take pictures of it. And the book came, and I remember I just like tore it open, looked at it, and immediately had this golden image feeling. It was hardly even an image, but I saw like this lattice, and I felt connected to every woman that ever was. And it just kept going on forever. And it could just feel that experience, like that collective experience. And it was so overwhelming that I started to cry myself. Mm. And that was my first experience, the divine feminine, really having a moment. And then the next experience I had was, you know, I went to my teacher training, and I had two daughters at the time. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And for those who don't know, the teacher training involved with learning to teach this is 3 months in India. It's a very intense experience. And so I had to leave my kids, which was, I'd never left them before. And so it was quite an ordeal. And during this teacher training, I was just meditating, and one of many, many, many meditations. And I just had this, I was doing a technique where you kind of put your awareness out to the edge of the universe. And at this point in my education, I didn't even know that, you know, in Vedic terms, they talk about, you know, the whole universe is like being held in the womb of Mother Divine. So by going out to the edge, I ran into her and had this experience. You know, she basically, you know, when I say she's a part of me, my consciousness, but the divine aspect of myself told me, you know, I need you to do my work to help people, to nurture and extend that mothering out to the world. And so that was also the beginning of my work for my nonprofit, which does similar to what yours does, where we bring meditation to people who need it, who otherwise wouldn't have access. So she's played a big role in my life. And as a mother, I feel like I'm a mother to my kids, but I also extend that mothering out to my students and beyond.
And in the last year, especially through COVID, which has been an experience of going inward, where people have been forced literally to be inside, right? And the awakening can be either going inside and really going inside. Have you found that has shifted and that has grown within you?
By going inside, has the divine...
Well, during COVID, actually being inside and then that self-reflective experience.
It's a little different for me because I was suddenly very busy. We were inside, but I was homeschooling. Suddenly I had all my kids home at once. And I went from having some time to myself to zero. So it wasn't that like I could really go inward. I was very much going outward through that, even though I wasn't seeing as many people. But, I went through a transformation just like everyone else went through a transformation through this period. We had to adapt. Some difficult things happened during this COVID stretch. And yeah, I feel like I transformed because of it. I feel like I'm, from the divine feminine standpoint, I think my view has gotten even more global. It's just seeing how many people are in, just the need keeps growing and the world keeps getting hotter, both with tempers and with temperature. And just that call just feels stronger now after what we've been going through, after what we've all been seeing.
And how is that manifested in the 3D with your behavior and what you've put back into the world?
So how, just seeing that urgency, it's manifested in my work with Meditation Without Borders. We're really, starting this fall. Once I was able to get my kids back in school about a month ago, really stepped on the gas pedal, have a bunch of different contacts made and potential projects. One of which is in Kenya, where we're going to be teaching young women who are disabled, who are potential victims of sex trafficking. Another group of people in Kenya who, through a medical center, we're talking with the IRC about teaching Afghan refugees. I have a meeting with them in a week. I'm also talking with locally a group called the Canal Alliance here in the Bay Area who is interested in having us come teach some undocumented children, young adults like teenagers and adolescents who have been left here without their parents. So, when I think of the, a lot of, and even the Afghan refugees, I've been talking to a couple of groups. They all seem to be saying, "Oh, we have some women we want you to teach." So it's been women and children a lot that we're focusing on, and that definitely pulls on the mom part of me. Like I can't even talk about it without starting to get a little misty. Just
it's not a live stream usually unless I sing, laugh, or cry. So
that's good.
everyone. The Earth's energy is that replicating a divine feminine because it is the creator, nature, and as we have seen what's been happening to the globe, how divine feminine has been taking a hit from that, and the universe, the energy of the universe ever creating or expansion. If you wish to take it on a scientific point of view, whether you come from the philosophy that it is ever expanding or you believe it's ever contracting, depending on your physics mindset, it is creation, and that is of the divine feminine nature. And so the global essence is that of the mother, the collaboration. We've seen in the last few years how there are more women than before who ran for office in the United States. And it is simply putting back equanimity, that's all, and reciprocation. And the divine feminine's journey is that of their worth, understanding the knowledge of their worth. The divine masculines is being vulnerable. But when the divine feminine energy came in, and I'm not sure if you had this similar experience, was it very much is opening up the heart area here.
Yeah.
And it is opening up the passageway from the mind to the heart, and very much of expansion of the heart area. Did you feel, as you've had this more movement going forward, that physically you felt more expansive from any particular part within your body?
I think, oh, it's interesting you mentioned that. When I had the epiphany to go teach meditation, it came with a very physical feeling, like almost like an octopus had been holding my heart, then released. And I didn't even realize it till I felt the release. It was just this massive heart opening. And I felt more empowered through this, I believe, feeling that energy come through, feeling that need. You know, not worrying about the little things I normally worry about, like, oh my gosh, if I gain 5 pounds, you know, oh my laundry is like the size of the Himalayas, you know, like the kind of ordinary stuff just seems small and more distance. So that's how that expansion has felt. And as far as in my body in particular, yeah, if I've gone through a lot of physical change. I feel it in the heart, and also, you know, I've somewhat of a sexual abuse history, so there's been a lot going on in the lower body as well, as I'm feeling this change. You know, and it's interesting that we are having this talk today because there's marches going on all over the country, women's marches today, and Navaratri starts next week. So it's a very
And those of you who don't know what that is, that's 9 years of celebrating the female divine, where they are particularly in India. And yes, there are no accidents. And even if I don't try to organize it, it's organized for me. My experience too was very much a very severe opening of the heart chakra and where the solar plexus was. Those who don't know me, who are joining me, I came to meditation because I got hurt working on a computer and filing in an office, and my body never really set from the physical pain, and was looking for something to help deal with long-term chronic pain rather than pills and booze, as it were. And so I searched various forms of meditation. This particular practice did something for me that no doctor did. I couldn't sleep at night because of the physical pain, and I would sleep for 3 hours every afternoon. And I did this practice the first day on my own, and I had loads of thoughts. I had no idea what meditation was supposed to be, apart from looking online and seeing either men with long beards or really skinny, attractive women. And I didn't fit into either of that and couldn't stop my mind. In fact, it seemed to make the thoughts happen more. But afterwards, I lay down for my regular 3-hour rest. And within 5 minutes, my body didn't need it. And, you know, it hasn't ever since. And the circadian rhythm started to reset. So still having, you know, pain from, you know, repetitive work. And it's important to know that meditation is a tool to help you. I firmly believe in promise low, but keep to the truth and allow your experience. And the deep rest we get in this practice, people feel like they've slept for about a month sometimes. And that's because we equate deep rest only with being horizontal and going to sleep. But a lot of times our mind is really busy and it doesn't shift with that. So as we were moving through, I had always personally taught people who, sort of like myself, had hard times. And then the COVID came around, and it was very clear that my calling was to be doing this on a global scale and be able to teach large groups. That's the goal. COVID, of course, is a little tricky to do that. So baby steps, as it were, but not being stressed out, keeping that divine feminine energy. And within that, there was a deep, deep expansion in here. I could feel a grounding inwards in here, that there was an opening of the ribcage physically. There was work with doctors that didn't understand why things were beginning to open up after years and years of work. The ignition, I will say, of those root chakras as well, moving up through, became very, very intense. Don't take HRT, just connect to the divine feminine and everything will come. But this is the movement of the kundalini, the energy that comes through and up the body, right? And timing, you know, effortless joy, bring it with bliss, which Kristen is here with me, because how many times people will say, oh, but there's already a nonprofit that does that, or there's already someone who does that. And you see, the calling of the divine feminine, never mind that. There will always be need. There will always be need. But what is transforming within both of us individually, I can say, is what is fulfilling that need of the time, right? And we change the world one heart at a time. I will have a conversation with one person. I've learned something. They've learned something. On a massive scale, for it to really go inward is not as easy to do. We have a beautiful technique that naturally brings us inward anyway. And this is an element of the divine feminine, going inward. Like all the answers are in here, and we are brought up culturally with it's all out there. Right. And so we've got things a little twisted, but that growing feeling, and things move through, right? So when I was having events and things to do some fundraising and lockdown, Kristen was always one of the first people to advocate and support it. And likewise, my annual donation, apart from my nonprofit, the next one was to hers. And this is, I'm trying to find the word, I say it wrong. Reciprocation, I can say, right? And this is the acknowledgement of there's no need of competition. There is no competition when we go inward and we follow our path. This is what's needed for flow, right? And it is not, of course, an accident. And we're going to share, but we're never going to get the right screen because that's just the way everything goes. We will see here the ebook, Vedic Meditation Stories, if I move the bar out of the way. Not an accident, this is actually water behind her with the divine feminine here. This book is free if you have Amazon Kindle. It's completely free right now. And as you can see here, you can look into my account and see I could get it for free for one click. And that, if you are new to a meditation and you've enjoyed what we've been sharing about, but want a bit more info, this is the perfect thing to do because it has true stories from people who learned our practice. And it's predominantly the true stories about it, and they're unedited, which means that you're going to hear their heart come through with it. And so if you have a friend who has it, but you can't afford it, they can actually share the book in the first 2 weeks. And that's there as a resource to globally have somebody maybe hear about a practice that brings us inward as we connect with that divine feminine. Now, part of the divine feminine, that nurturing element is, of course, to be supporting the expansion of the divine masculine. So we all have our own path as we expand and we start to break down those prejudices, right? We start to be able to be a living example and going inward. Have you had any experiences since you've noticed this expansion in the last year that you ever, I don't know, I guess I'm just looking for another experience that you had because I'm nosy.
Well, the biggest experience of the COVID period was getting pregnant again and losing my baby. Mm. And that was a motherhood experience that I never wanted, but if I think about, you know, what transformed me most, it would be that. And I think going through that loss, she was stillborn. Her name is Artemis, and she was stillborn at 5 months gestation. Having to birth her, connecting with that baby who I had many in consciousness conversations with beforehand. You know, she told me her name. She told me, I had a sense of her, you know, I got to meet her, and then, but I didn't expect to lose her. Though it was funny that we had some, looking back, there was inklings of it. Like there was something very dark about the whole thing. My husband and I joke, we almost bought like a black baby blanket because we were like, there's something dark about this whole process, you know, not negative, but we could tell that there was something different than the others. And having lost her, I got to experience that divine feminine in that suddenly all these women came to find me to tell me their experience, their stories. When we buried her, I lost her and in the hospital, but I was on my own. So I birthed her on my own, and then they let us take her home. And so we buried her, my husband and I, together in the backyard by a tree that he had been raising since the day we were married. He found a sapling, and so it's this beautiful spot. And as we were burying her, once again, it was interesting. I had it's very similar to the experience I told you about in the beginning with the book. I once again felt connected to all the women who've gone through this. Like I could feel into that connection, and I could feel how lonely and sad. And then what was interesting is right after that, it sunk a little deeper, and I felt the men, which was like the women was like, once again, felt like a lattice, and then the men felt like points, like they were even more isolated from one another. And in the weeks that followed, women came to me, they brought me food, they brought me presents. All these bracelets I have are gifts, every single one from someone to support me through this. One has Artemis's name. This one says Jai Gurudev. This other one has little angel wings. So they just showered me and supported me, and I got to hear about them. And then I think my husband, maybe one friend texted him. So I saw the women, feminine.
This is where there is the rise of the divine masculine. We are also responsible to help that rise up. Not many people want to hear that. Yeah, right. We lead the way, and these are stories now that are spoken of without shame, right? And that's shame is in the DNA. It's in the cells, and it comes down. I had not birthed a child, but I did lose a child that I had very much a connection to, and saw their face, and I knew their name as well. And so my mother actually died at the same time. And so there was a lot going on with those energies and separating it, in addition to the physical hormonal aspects that are happening. And there was a moment where it was, do I continue down the rabbit hole, or there is somebody right here who needs that nurturing divine feminine divine energy, and really going down and examining what is a mother. What is that divine feminine nurturing energy? Is it genetics? Maybe, maybe not. Is it the person who's there, who shows up, that's nurturing? And this is a great question nowadays with all of the resources that we have to break these old ideas that unless something comes to full term, that it's very much on the blame of the female, which science will be proving more and more. It's that shame that comes down, and it's the cleansing of that shame that we all have, whether you are in a male body or not, that, you know, there is shame that comes down, and the divine female energy is of a healing energy, and going inward is where we start to feel that, right? That ability to go inward, and that then can move forward to go outward as well. So we had not by accident again, a fundraiser for teaching those who are victims of sex trafficking earlier, you know, in last year. And those of you who are in the Los Angeles area, who know people, we have our inaugural course in 2 weeks' time in October, and a part of Los Angeles, Puente Learning Center, which is in Boyle Heights. And they have opened up their doors to anyone who is considered low income, who is able to attend the course is welcome. All that's required is for you to attend a Zoom information session through me, first of all, so you know what's happening, and because we have COVID restrictions. And we are very excited for that. And I will just show quickly the link here for anybody who is online here. There's a couple of videos about meditation. These are the dates. These are the information session times. We have some information for people who learned it when they were Christian. And we also then have the benefits. But again, this is just the beginning. Please go to the link will be put in the description. This is for those in the Los Angeles area who are curious. And we have just found out we're getting some funding for next year to be going to Australia. And so we are going to be investigating that. I don't know how it's going to turn out. So I think definitely Kristen and myself are living on, I don't know how that's going to happen. Someone's like, how are you going to get the money? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I will be telling Kristen offline to help her help others as well. But we are all here to help one another and support each other with what's going on. And I definitely have sent messages to her saying, you're doing amazing. Keep going. Don't stop. And she reciprocates with, no, you've done another thing. You've got a book out. What? And so beyond going into our own tailspins, right? It is a supportive, collaborative endeavor to help bring a practice that will not only change you getting some deep rest, but what happens is it's going to enable you to change your consciousness. And so I put it like this. We can think positive because we've actually got a lot of negative stuff we haven't dealt with. So we have to force ourselves to think positive. But underneath, there's a reason why. Then we can try to temporarily change our mindset, but we all fall back. But then we're trying to change the state of the mind. It might have a bit more durability, but it's going to crash. If we get deeper and we start to shift and change our consciousness, we don't have to be positive because we are, or it happens, or we're real. We don't have to change our mindset. Or if we find ourselves going in, we flick back out. But more than that, we could become okay with who we are, and we are less at the effect of fear. And we are less at the effect of someone else's outsides being a threat to who we are, and we become more of who we are. So those of you who want to learn a little bit more, in the description, we will have my links and Kristen's links. If anyone there who watches it, who's looking to find out about the meditation, we've got that information there with the ebook as well. You can just check it out. No sweat. It's great. And where you can support either of us, or if you have a fabulous idea of how you can get both of us power women together to change the world in a global way, then you know the two of us will be on a plane together. So thank you for joining us. We are going to end the live stream, and we'll see you guys soon. Please enjoy the YouTube channel. We have Cosmic Chats, which are weekly chats with people about how their perception changed through a life event to help other people. We have previous live streams that you might enjoy. And please, hopefully you can support it so we can get more people to learn about other ways to go inward and get rid of their stress and follow their own purpose in life.